Hi everybody, my name's Joel and I play keyboards in the Lizard's Fish Tribute, and I'm gonna show you guys my rig here. It's you could call it Paige on a budget maybe, you know? Paige has quite the rig and we don't often have the same space and means, so we do what we can. It's still quite a few keyboards. So I'll start here. This is Paige has a grand piano. What I have is this keyboard is a Korg SV1, but I'm really just using it as a MIDI controller because I'm not actually using any sounds from the keyboard. If you'll follow me back here, this is like a dirty little secret that I'm letting you all in on. The sounds are actually all coming off of a laptop. I use what's called a VST instrument. This one is called Piano Tech. I really like Piano Tech because it's a piano modeler, it's not sample based. So what that means is that it uses a lot less computer power and hard drive space, but it still sounds really great. And that's how I get the piano sound that I like. Okay, over here, this is my organ, which I like. Paige now has moved his organ to directly behind him. But we do a lot of sort of 1.0 and 2.0 fish in this band, and the sort of like standard Paige thing is the piano on his right and the organ on his left, so I'm kind of replicating that here. Now I don't have a Hammond B3. What I do have is a Nord C2D, and I have this really cool wooden box that a friend of mine named Jeff Hayschel made for me. Jeff Hayschel is also a really great keys player in Toronto. Plays with lots of people, plays in a pretty cool band called The Trues, and he also builds cool boxes and cases for keyboards. So kind of gives me this cool wooden look that I would get with a Hammond, but with a lighter and more affordable option. And also it lifts up. I'll try to do this without knocking the other keyboard down so you can see I kind of keep my cables in there and things. Could even keep a sandwich in there if I wanted to. And similar to Rich, I've also got a ventilator pedal doing my my Leslie simulation. So it works the exact same way a B3 does. I've got drawbars. Oh, somehow this is set to pipe organ right now. That's kind of fun. So you can see with this switch, I can toggle my Leslie fast and slow. I've got my drawbars, doing drawbar things, bringing in the high tones or the low tones so you can have a really sort of thin sound, or you can pull all the stops, as they say, and get that nice full organ. So that's the organ. And now over here we've got the clavinet. So Paige, you'll notice my clav looks different than Paige's. That's because Paige has a Hohner D6, whereas I have the clavinet Hohner E7. So the D6 was the original clav that they made, and it sounds great, and I would love to have one, except the thing is, the D6 wasn't a very like road hardy keyboard, and one of the main issues people had with it back in the day was that it tended to break and so they came out with the E7, which was the next one in line, with the intention of making like a sturdier, tougher clav that can, you know, survive touring and you know, survive lots of trips in the van and trips in the trailer and whatever. So I went with the E7 because we don't travel with sort of an army of techs and people who can repair my stuff. I need my stuff to be in good working order with kind of just me maintaining it. So the E7 was kind of the natural one to get. And it sounds quite a bit like the D6. And very similar to Paige, I do a lot of the same things pedal-wise. I've got a Vox wah pedal here. Paige used to have this exact same phaser pedal, but he's recently switched phasers. I'm not sure why, but I've still got the original one that he was kind of using in the 90s. I also use a tube screamer for distortion here, which Paige doesn't do. One thing, I've watched all of his rig videos and I've always been curious how he gets the distortion that he gets on his clavinet, because he doesn't have a distortion pedal. I can only assume he's going into some sort of amp that's giving him amp distortion. Now the amp that I'm using doesn't have tubes, it's like a solid state amp, so if I want to get the same kind of gritty distortion sound as Paige, I use a tube screamer, so you can hear it when it's totally clean. And then when we add the wah pedal to it, and then if we add the distortion, now we're starting to get more close to the sort of sound Paige is getting out of his clav. And then if we want things to kind of get a little heady, we turn on the phaser pedal. Now we're getting crunchy. So that's the clav. Moving on over here, I've got the real thing here. I've got a Fender Rhodes Mark 1, 73 key. I love this Rhodes. My good friend Andrew Molgen sold this to me, and I think he regrets it, but it's too late, Molge. You sold it to me. A deal's a deal. And the only thing I've got going with this, Paige has a different model of Rhodes that has a phaser effect built in, whereas I have the older version of Rhodes that didn't come with anything but just a volume knob and a bass boost knob. So I'm using a guitar pedal to get the phaser sound over here. I'm using a Helix TC Electronic. So without that, I can just have the clean Rhodes sound. Or I can add a little phaser to it. And I can make that real gnarly if I want it. We can get some really trippy sounds going there.
Yeah, it's like the Paige sound.
And now,
I love it.
Paige has like all kinds of synths. Is some really nice like vintage stuff. His like Yamaha one and his Moog one. I'd love to have those synths, but a lot of the venues we play at, I'm limited in space and what I can do, and just in the time we have to sound check with just us setting it up. And also these keyboards are really expensive. So what I kind of go with for the bulk of my synth sounds is the Dave Smith Prophet Rev 2. Paige also has a Prophet keyboard in his setup. And what I love about this keyboard is just the capability for the price. I can get great lead sounds, I can get great chord sounds. You know, if I want the sort of like solo-y lead, I got. Or if I want like maybe more of a meat stick sound, you know, I've kind of made a few presets in this synth that I'll sort of dial up depending on like what sort of Paige jam synth I'm trying to do, or there's certain songs that have like very specific synth sounds in them, like meat stick, you know. I'm just trying to get as close as I can to what Paige is doing on this synth, and I think it's doing a pretty good job. You know, here would be an example of say like 7 Below. And pretty much all of those sounds I'm doing off the Prophet. All right, now finally, probably the least exciting part of my rig, but why not save that for last, you know? This is a Nord Stage 2. In my kind of like normal everyday gigging life, a lot of times this is the only keyboard I'll bring to a gig because it sort of does it all. It's got organs, pianos, synths. But because I've got so much of that covered already, I'm pretty much using this as just a dedicated Wurlitzer. As you know, Paige, especially in a lot of the 3.0 stuff, he's really favoring the Wurlitzer a lot these days, and it's just become a sound that I just need to have to do this music justice, and the Nord has a really great Wurlitzer patch. I do have one other thing that I use this keyboard for. This is like real Paige insider stuff. So I'm sure we all know the song Bouncing Around the Room. When I was learning that song, I noticed, and I'm listening to like a live version, not a record where there could have been overdubs, that he's playing a two-handed piano part, right? He's playing something like this. And I walk, faintly bouncing around the room. And I can tell he's using two hands on those chords because he's playing big chords. But what I could hear going on at the same time was just a droning A on the organ. It's probably like something like that. And I was like, how could he possibly be doing that if both of his hands are on the piano, because organs don't have sustain. You can't just like press a note, press the sustain pedal and have it hold forever. So what I eventually realized, I was like watching videos and trying to find a video where like at that moment the camera was on Page, and I finally found one, and he's using a paperweight. I saw it just for a second. He like puts, there's like this little like black thing holding the key down. So he's at some point he went like this and then just like dropped a paperweight to hold the A down on the key. Now I don't have a paperweight, but because my Nord organ is what am I trying to say? Digital and not analog, I can hook up a sustain pedal to it. So what I've actually got is the organ that's coming off of the Nord, and I've got a bouncing around the room patch made, and I've got a sustain pedal hooked up to it, so that when we get to that moment in bouncing, my sustain pedal just keeps the organ going, and I can do what Page does with the paperweight. And now you are faintly bouncing around the room, the echo of whomever spoke. So there's a little Page secret there for you. I hope that was fun. I hope you guys enjoyed my Page on a budget rig run down here. And yeah, come see us play. Come see me play all these stupid keyboards.